Happy birthday to my wonderful mommy. I squinted at the card my 7-year-old daughter, Lily, had made for me. The colorful letters swam before my eyes, doubling and blurring until they became meaningless squiggles. What's wrong now? Mark, my husband of 9 years, sighed from across the kitchen. It's a simple birthday card, Sarah. I blinked hard, trying to force my eyes to focus. The words, they're just not clear. It's probably just stress from that promotion you're chasing, Mark dismissed, not looking up from his phone. You've been working too hard. Everything becomes a crisis when you're stressed. Lily's face fell as she watched me struggle with her card. Don't you like it, Mommy? Of course I do, sweetheart. I pulled her close, fighting back tears of frustration. I love all the colors you used. I'm just having trouble reading today. Again? Mark's voice carried that familiar tone of irritation. Maybe if you spent less time staring at spreadsheets and more time relaxing, you wouldn't have these episodes. Episodes. That's what he called the increasing frequency of my vision problems. The double vision that made driving dangerous. The blind spots that appeared without warning. The crushing headaches that followed. I have an appointment with Dr. Reynolds next week, I said quietly, still holding Laylee. Mark rolled his eyes. Another doctor. Sarah, we've been through this. The optometrist said your eyes are fine. The GP said you're fine. You're just working too hard, I finished bitterly. Stressed? Imagining things. Well, if the shoe fits. He stood up, grabbing his car keys. I'm taking Lily to soccer practice. Try to relax while we're gone. Maybe take a nap or something. After they left, I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at Lily's birthday card. The symptoms had started 3 months ago. Small things at first. Difficulty reading fine print, occasional blurriness. But it had progressively gotten worse. Last week, I had missed an important client presentation because I couldn't read the PowerPoint slides. My boss had been understanding, but Mark accused me of sabotaging my own career. You're just scared of success, he'd said. Creating obstacles so you have an excuse to stay in your comfort zone. My phone buzzed, a text from my sister Kate. How was Lily's card? Did you tell Mark about the MRI referral? I hadn't. Dr. Reynolds, my new neurologist, had called yesterday after reviewing my symptoms. He wanted an immediate MRI, his voice carrying an urgency that sent chills down my spine. Let's rule out some things, he'd said carefully. The way he said things made my stomach turn. I texted Kate back, not yet. He thinks it's all stress-related. Her response was immediate. He thought your gallbladder attack was stress too, until they had to remove it after it ruptured. She had a point. 2 years ago, I complained of severe abdominal pain. Mark had insisted it was just anxiety about Lily starting school. By the time he finally took me to the ER, my gallbladder had nearly burst. You worry too much, he'd said afterward. You always assume the worst. My phone buzzed again. Mark. Forgot Lily's water bottle. Can you bring it to the field? If you're not too dizzy to drive. The sarcasm in those quotation marks made my chest tight. I grabbed my keys and Lily's water bottle, then stopped at the front door. The doorknob had doubled, 2 brass handles swimming in my vision. I closed my eyes, counting to 10. When I opened them, the double vision had passed, but the familiar pressure was building behind my left eye. The drive to the soccer field was nerve-wracking. Street signs blurred, and twice I had to pull over when the world suddenly shifted sideways. At the field, I found Mark watching Lily's practice. What took so long? He demanded as I handed him the water bottle. Practice is almost over. I had to drive carefully, I said, my vision. Sarah, enough. He turned to face me, frustration evident. Do you know how exhausting this is? Every day there's something new wrong with you. First the headaches, then the dizziness, now you can't see properly. I have an MRI scheduled for tomorrow, I said quietly. Of course you do, he scoffed. More unnecessary medical bills because you've WebMD'd yourself into believing something's seriously wrong. The neurologist ordered it. I started to explain, but he cut me off. A neurologist? Seriously? Who's next? A brain surgeon? A witch doctor? Lily's coach blew the final whistle, and our daughter came running over, her ponytail bouncing. Mommy, did you see my goal? She asked excitedly. I hadn't. The truth was, I'd barely been able to distinguish her from the other little girls in blue uniforms. Sorry, sweetie, I just got here, I said, hating the disappointment on her face. Of course you missed it, Mark muttered. Too busy focusing on your symptoms. As we walked to our separate cars, my vision blurred again, but this time I couldn't tell if it was from the neurological symptoms or the tears I was fighting back. Tomorrow's MRI would change everything. I just didn't know how much. The MRI machine hummed around me, its rhythmic thumping matching my racing heart. Stay completely still, the technician had instructed, but my whole body trembled with a mixture of fear and vindication. Mark hadn't come with me. You're being ridiculous, he'd said that morning, taking time off work for another wild goose chase. My phone had been buzzing nonstop since I'd arrived at the hospital. Hope you're enjoying your spa day at the imaging center. Lily's teacher called. Thanks for making me handle it alone. When you're done playing patient, we need milk and bread. Each message made my chest tighter, but I couldn't respond now, sealed in this white tunnel with strict instructions not to move. 2 hours later, I sat in Dr. Reynolds' office, my hands clutched tightly in my lap. The neurologist's face was grave as he pulled up my scans on his computer screen. Mrs. Walker, he began, then paused, choosing his words carefully. We found something significant. He pointed to an area on the scan. This is a tumor pressing on your optic nerve. Given its location and size, it explains the progressive vision problems you've been experiencing. The room seemed to tilt. A tumor? Yes, and given its position, we need to move quickly. I've already contacted Dr. Zhang, one of our top neurosurgeons. My phone buzzed again. Mark, done with your attention-seeking appointment yet? Dr. Reynolds noticed my hands shaking. Would you like me to call someone for you? I nodded, unable to speak. He took my phone gently and dialed Mark's number, putting it on speaker. Mr. Walker, this is Dr. Reynolds, your wife's neurologist at Metropolitan Hospital. Let me guess. Mark's voice dripped with sarcasm. She's convinced you something's terribly wrong. The doctor's expression hardened. Actually, Mr. Walker, I'm calling because we found a significant brain tumor pressing on your wife's optic nerve. We need to schedule emergency surgery within the next 48 hours to prevent permanent blindness. Silence. Mr. Walker? That's impossible, Mark stuttered. She was just stressed. The other doctors said. I'm looking at her MRI right now. Dr. Reynolds cut in firmly. This is not stress, Mr. Walker. This is a serious medical condition that has likely been developing for months. Your wife needs immediate medical intervention. More silence. Then the sound of keys jangling. Which hospital? Metropolitan, 4th floor, neurology department. After hanging up, Dr. Reynolds turned to me. The surgical team is ready to meet with you. Would you like to wait for your husband? I nodded, still processing everything. A tumor. All those times I complained about my vision, all those times Mark had dismissed me. Mark arrived 30 minutes later, his face ashen. He stopped dead in his tracks when he saw me sitting with the surgical team, surrounded by brain scans and consent forms. Sarah, he whispered. Mr. Walker, Dr. Zhang interrupted. Please join us. We were just explaining the surgical procedure to your wife. The surgeon pointed to various images, explaining how they would remove the tumor, the risks involved, the recovery process. Mark sank into a chair beside me, his hand reaching for mine, but I pulled away. If left untreated, Dr. Zhang continued, the tumor will cause permanent blindness. Even with immediate surgery, there may be some lasting vision deficits. Lasting effects. Mark's voice cracked. But all those times, I told her it was nothing. Unfortunately, dismissing neurological symptoms is quite common, Dr. Reynolds said pointedly. Many patients face skepticism from family members until a crisis point is reached. Mark flinched at the implied criticism. I'll need someone to care for me after the surgery, I said quietly. Someone who will take my symptoms seriously. I will, Mark said quickly. Sarah, I'll take care of everything. I've already called Kate, I interrupted. She's taking time off work to stay with me. The hurt on his face was almost satisfying, but mostly it just made me tired. So tired of fighting to be believed, to be heard, to be taken seriously. But I'm your husband, he protested weakly. Yes, I agreed, you are. And every time I needed you to believe me, to support me, to just listen to me, you chose not to. Dr. Zhang cleared her throat. We need to discuss pre-surgical preparations. Mrs. Walker, would you prefer to have this conversation privately? I looked at Mark, saw the guilt and fear warring on his face, and made a decision that had been months in the making. Yes, I said, I would. As Mark stepped out of the office, I caught a glimpse of him wiping his eyes. Part of me wanted to comfort him, to say it would all be okay. But another part, The part that had been silenced and dismissed for so long knew that some things couldn't be fixed with simple apologies. Tomorrow, they would remove the tumor from my brain, but the damage to my marriage, that might be beyond repair. The weeks following brain surgery passed in a blur of recovery rooms, physical therapy, and uncomfortable silences. Marr hovered at the edges of my hospital room while Kate took charge of my care, his presence a constant reminder of all the times he'd been absent when I truly needed him. Your vision should gradually improve, Dr. Zhang explained during a follow-up appointment. The surgery was successful, but healing takes time. Mark, sitting in the corner, spoke up hesitantly. And the headaches she was having? The ones I said were. He trailed off, unable to finish. Were also caused by the tumor, Dr. Zhang confirmed flatly, as were the dizzy spells, the fatigue, and the coordination issues you attributed to clumsiness. Each symptom she listed seemed to physically pain him. Good, I thought, then immediately felt guilty for the vindictive thought. Back at home, with Kate staying in our guest room, the dynamic was strained. Mark tried. God, he finally tried. He brought me water, checked my medication schedule, and drove me to appointments without a single sarcastic comment. But his efforts only highlighted how little support he'd offered before. One evening, I found him in Lily's room, holding her birthday card, the one I couldn't read. Daddy, why are you crying? Lily asked from the doorway, startling us both. Because I made some big mistakes, sweetheart, he answered, his voice rough. And I don't know how to fix them. Later that night, after Lily was asleep, he found me in the living room. I found these, he said, placing a stack of papers on the coffee table. They were printouts of his text messages to me over the past year. Playing patient again, another imaginary symptom. Drama queen mode activated. Reading them now, seeing his dismissive cruelty in black and white, made my surgical scar throb. I was awful, he whispered. I was worse than awful. I was abusive. The word hung heavy in the air between us. It was the first time either of us had named it for what it was. Why? I asked, the question that had haunted me through my recovery. Why was it easier to believe I was lying than sick? He sat heavily on the couch, keeping his distance. I told myself I was being practical, level-headed, that you were the emotional one, the anxious one. He paused, struggling. But the truth is, I was scared. Every time you said something was wrong, I shut it down because I couldn't handle the possibility of you being seriously ill. So you made me handle it alone. Yes, he wiped his eyes. I convinced myself I was helping you by not feeding into your fears. Instead, I just made you suffer in silence. Kate appeared in the doorway, her expression protective. Sarah needs to rest. But I shook my head. It's okay, Kate. We need to have this conversation. After she reluctantly left, Mark pulled out one last paper, a referral to a marriage counselor. I know it might be too late, he said quietly. I know I might have destroyed any trust you had in me. But if you're willing to try, I want to learn how to be the husband you deserved all along. I looked at the referral, thinking about all the moments that had led us here. The dismissed symptoms, the mocking texts, the lonely doctor's appointments. I can't make any promises, I said finally, but I'm willing to try counseling. His relief was palpable, but I held up my hand. On one condition. Anything. You need individual therapy too, because this wasn't just about my illness. This was about your need to control situations by dismissing them. And I won't risk Lily growing up thinking that's how relationships work. He nodded, tears falling freely now. I've already started. 2 sessions so far. That surprised me. You have? The day of your surgery, watching them wheel you away. He swallowed hard. I realized I might lose you, either to the tumor I ignored or to the damage I caused. I found a therapist that afternoon. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of years of dismissal and denial between us. I saw the goal, he said suddenly. What? At Lily's soccer game, the day before your MRI. When you said you missed her goal. I saw it and I didn't even think to describe it to you. I just judged you for missing it. Such a small thing, but it symbolized so much. She was wearing her lucky blue headband, he continued, voice breaking. She dribbled past 2 defenders and scored from the left side of the field. She did this little victory dance afterward. You should have seen it. You would have seen it if I had believed you sooner. I reached out and took his hand, the first voluntary contact since the diagnosis. Tell me more, I whispered. Tell me everything I missed while you were busy telling me nothing was wrong. And as he described every detail of our daughter's triumph, I realized that maybe, just maybe, there was hope for us after all. Not because he was finally paying attention to me, but because he was finally paying attention to himself and the harm he had caused. The tumor they removed from my brain hadn't just been killing my vision, it had been killing our marriage. Now that both were healing, we could finally begin to see each other clearly.